This episode is brought to you by The Build, a new podcast from the guys behind Sincera, Mike O'Sullivan and Ian Myers. They built their company by figuring out clever solutions to a few important ad tech problems in their industry. And that's exactly what this show is about. Mike and Ian interview some of the smartest tech minds in the biz to hear about how they identified opportunities, solved their hardest challenges, and grew their businesses in the process. Listen to The Build with Mike O'Sullivan wherever you get your podcasts. This episode is sponsored by Plod AI. We've all been there. You're days away from a deadline and you remember a brilliant idea from a brainstorming session, but you can't find it in your notes. It's frustrating, confusing, and frankly, a waste of time. Recently, I've integrated Plod AI, that's P-L-A-U-D, into my daily workflow, and it's a game changer for staying organized. Plod isn't just an app, it's a hardware-software powerhouse. I use the Note Pro for phone calls, Note Pen for my in-person meetings, and the new Plod desktop app for all my virtual sessions. With one click, it records everything and generates an accurate, searchable transcript. But the real magic is the Ask Plod feature. I can literally ask questions about a meeting from 3 weeks ago and get an instant answer. It turns every conversation into a searchable asset for me and my team. Stop taking notes and focus. Turn your meetings into actionable insights with the world's most advanced AI note taker. Learn more at plod.ai. That's Plaud.ai. And use the promo code CODESTORY, all one word, to get 10% off your purchase.
One of the things that struck me, if you think about it, when I worked in finance in a few public companies, I had the chance to work in 4 public companies. Finance always have the notion of close. But for several weeks, every quarter, everyone is heads down, closing the books. You can't take vacations. It's almost like you're nailed to your chair, so to speak, consumed in processes that basically requires you to validate the data, document what you're doing, create a set of analytics, all kind of repetitive work, which AI can immensely help to solve. And I just thought it could be different. My name is Ahikam Kaufman. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Safebooks AI.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries.
Spent 6 months moonlighting.
There's nothing on the back end.
Who share what it takes to change an industry.
I don't exactly know what to do
took
next.
many goes to get right.
Who built the teams that have their
A
back.
company is its
The
people.
teams help each other achieve
Most
more.
proud of our team.
Keeping scalability top of mind.
All that infrastructure was a
Yes,
pain.
we've been fighting it as we grow.
Total waste of time. The stories you don't read in the headlines.
It's not an easy thing to achieve, mind
Took it
you.
off the shelf and dusted it off and tried it again.
To ride the ups and downs of the startup life.
You need to really
It's
want it.
not just about technology.
All this and more on Code Story.
I'm your host, Noah Labhart, and today Ahikam Kaufman has built the agentic platform for finance operations, turning your manual processes into agentic automation. Today's episode is brought to you by .tech Domains, and this one hits close to home. Back in 2016, I was building my startup and went hunting for that perfect .com and found next to nothing. So I did what every founder does, settled. Here's what I wish someone had told me. You're building a tech startup, just get a .tech domain. It instantly tells investors and customers what you're about. Don't overthink it. Secure your .tech domain today from any registrar of your choice. This episode is sponsored by Unblocked. Unblocked is the context layer your agents are missing. It synthesizes your PRs, docs, Slack, and tickets into organizational context that agents actually understand. So they make better plans, write higher quality code, use fewer tokens, and require fewer correction loops. If you're running Claude Code, Cursor, or any agentic workflow, Unblocked is worth a look. Learn more at getunblocked.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by Mesmo. If your team is collecting large volumes of logs, metrics, and traces, but still struggling to get timely answers, Mesmo can help. Mesmo is an active telemetry platform that processes and enriches observability data in real time before it's stored or analyzed. That means lower data volume, lower cost, and faster root cause analysis across your existing observability tools. To see how it works, get a demo at mezmo.com/codestory. That's mezmo.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by BrainGrid. If you are building with AI coding tools, but your features keep breaking, you need to check out BrainGrid. It is the product management agent for AI builders. BrainGrid turns messy ideas into clear specs, tasks, and prompts that coding agents like Cursor and Claude can actually build the right way. Ship real software, not fragile prototypes. Start free at braingrid.ai. Ahikam Kaufman spent most of his career in the Bay Area. After becoming a CPA, he started his career as CFO to a startup company. Over time, he's been given multiple opportunities to not only serve finance, but serve business roles as well, which prepared him for his own entrepreneurial path, i.e. starting 3 companies and exiting one to Intuit. Outside of tech, he enjoys traveling the world, spending time with his family and hiking, but he notes that the demands of being a business owner limits the amount of time he spends in these things. Ahikam started to think about how automation can positively impact financial operations, specifically around managing data in the office of the CFO. After the first AI models were released, he got excited, realizing that these models would continue to get better and better alongside operating with agency. This is the creation story of Safebooks.
As a co-founder of Check, we built a mobile payment system which we sold to Intuit. And then when I got into Intuit, I started working very closely also with the finance team of Intuit. I got more and more exposed to some of the challenges finance people have when they have to deal with a lot of data, let alone fintech companies who process, let's say, payment processors, things like that. And learn how do you get your arms around the compliance and regulatory requirement while you help to run a business which is very complex from a data standpoint. And I started to think about how automation can help in that. Obviously, during that time, we used to talk about AI, but it was more like machine learning. And after the first models came out towards the end of 2022, I thought that it's going to get even better. I always say, at least in my humble opinion, that where we are now is like we're looking at the Ford Model T and we're really excited about the car, but the car is going to get much better in a couple of years down the road. So we think it's like super innovative, but I think AI is going to look even better every few months that goes by. So we think we're excited, but we're going to be even more excited as things move along. And when the first models came out, I realized that we have now a way and we have the technology to be able to solve some of the complex problems around how do you manage data in the office of the CFO. One of the things that struck me, if you think about it, when I worked in finance in a few public companies, I had the chance to work in 4 public companies. Finance always have the notion of close. But for several weeks, every quarter, everyone is heads down, closing the books. You can't take vacations. It's almost like you're nailed to your chair, so to speak, consumed in processes that basically requires you to validate the data, document what you're doing, create a set of analytics, all kind of repetitive work, which AI can immensely help to solve. And I just thought it could be different. What we've done with Safebooks, we developed an agentic platform that can totally emulate most of the work done by a human being, replacing repetitive Sisyphic work around the structured and unstructured data. Where it comes more complex, and I think AI even creates an advantage, is when you need to look at that data across systems. In finance, every transaction could be processed by multiple systems. For example, a revenue transaction, then you have a coding system, you have a CRM, you have supporting documentation, whether it's like a contract order form. You have a billing system, you have an ERP, you have banks. In AP or procure to pay, it's the same. And many other, in payroll, you have HRIS and payroll and so on. The ability to reconcile the data, look at the data and make sure everything is okay across systems, that's where it becomes hairy and complex. And there, agents can do a much better, faster job than even human beings. While I think most human beings I know would appreciate the fact that they can focus on what they do really best, making decisions, making accounting decisions, as opposed to counting the beans, so to speak, and checking the data. I think we just got to a place, or I felt we got to a place where the technology can actually execute on that with quality, because the other concern, the top concern finance people would have is, okay, I get that it can do the work, but what's the level of accuracy? What's the level of integrity? How much confidence can I or trust I can have in the system? 3 years after being into this AI journey, all of us, the entire world, or the most advanced AI models, I think we are at a place where the technology meets or exceeds some capabilities of the human being to be able to do that work. And I think it's exciting because specifically for the office of the CFO, or specifically for finance, for those who are like following up on that or interested, there is like a massive exodus from the profession. Much less people are going to learn finance today. So you have less supply of people, while I think the world is facing tremendous business opportunity and expansion, and finance is a critical function. So how do you do more with less? I think you do it using technology. So I thought it's a tremendous opportunity to augment manual work with automation, while the technology allowed that automation to be sufficient for the requirements in the office of the CFO. And I think some of these capabilities, and in terms of accuracy and quality, have only been available over the last, I would say, even 6 to 8 months. So we got to a level where it's sufficient. And I do have to admit, I do see in 2026, I see a different level of openness and acceptance towards AI in the office of the CFO. So that's our story.
I'd like to dive into the MVP for Safebooks. So the first version of the product you built and got out there. How long did it take to build, and what sort of tools were you using to bring it to life?
When we started the company, one of the decisions we've made is that we really care about the quality of the data we ingest. So we spent a lot of time, almost 2 years, building the first, what we call is financial data context graph, which means because of the unique needs and unique set of works that finance is doing, working with AI, we have to provide AI the right infrastructure and foundation to make sure it doesn't hallucinate and it doesn't make any errors. And in order to do that, we used proprietary graph technology that basically links all the data across systems, as if it was a single system. So our message to our prospects and customers is that in order to enjoy the benefit of AI, you don't need to replace any of your systems, any of your tech stack. We come on top, but when we come on top, we're not only augmenting what you have today, we actually ingest the data in a way that links the data across the systems, by that providing AI with the full context around the data. So if you think about that, we take the transaction we take your quote, we link it to the data in the CRM. We link it to the data that comes from the order form of the contract in your document management system. We link it to the relevant billing transactions in your billing system, and we link it to the relevant journal entries in your ERP. And by doing that, when the AI then looks on the data, it can't go wrong. It can't hallucinate. We spent a lot of time building that infrastructure as opposed to just build a product. And once we built that infrastructure, robust infrastructure, the AI came to a point where all the user experience, I would say foundation and capabilities could be prompted. So you don't need to build like a very structured kind of one-trick pony product. Once we created this data foundation and this unique data infrastructure, then when we come to create the use cases on top of the platform, we can actually prompt them. We can prompt dashboards, we can prompt workflows, as opposed to people starting with the product experience, which is then hard-coded and it's a one-trick pony. And when you want to be flexible and serve other use cases, you have to build each of them separately. So we actually focused on the data foundation, data quality, which is, I think, something that even the lab companies, which of course they're doing an amazing job, but that specific needs that finance have to be able to look at all the data across systems in order to generate the right integrity and accuracy, is something that we have as a differentiator. And that gives us the unique mode to be able to meet the expectations of finance people around accuracy and integrity.
Today's episode is brought to you by .tech domains, and this one hits close to home. Back in 2016, when I was building my own tech startup, I went on the hunt for that elusive .com. Looked high, looked low, and guess what I found? Nothing. What I did find cost me an arm and a leg. So I did what every founder does under pressure. Threw in extra letters, settled for the less than optimal name. And here's what I wish someone had said to me back then. Noah, you're building a tech startup. Just get a .tech domain. Tech startup, .tech domain. It could not be more obvious. It tells investors, customers, and anyone who looks at your website, really, that tech is at the core of your build. And I've kicked myself plenty since, especially when I see the clean and sharp names tech companies have landed on .tech. Nothing.tech, 1x.tech, Aurora.tech, CES.tech, Ultra.tech, Alice.tech, Neon.tech, Blaze.tech, Pi.tech. You get the idea. So take it from someone who learned it the hard way. If you're building a tech startup, don't overthink it. Secure your .tech domain today from any registrar of your choice. This episode is brought to you by The Build, a new podcast from the guys behind Sincera, Mike O'Sullivan and Ian Myers. They built their company by figuring out clever solutions to a few important ad tech problems in the industry, and that's exactly what this show is about. Mike and Ian interview some of the smartest tech minds at Magnite, Chalice, DoubleClick, and LiveRamp to hear about how they identified opportunities, solved their hardest challenges, and grew their businesses in the process. This show is for you if you've had some of these breakthrough moments yourself, or if you're seeking inspiration for the next one. Listen to The Build with Mike O'Sullivan wherever you get your podcasts. So you've got that MVP where you're focusing on the data, you're paying attention to how you're building the foundation for what you're building. How did you progress and mature it from that point? And I think to wrap that in a box a little bit, what I'm looking for is, how did you go about building your roadmap? How do you decide that, okay, this is the next most important thing to build or to address with Safebooks?
First of all, from the get-go, we started to work with customers and work on real data in order to be able, so you can't build that product in a lab, you have to build it with real data. Once we did that, and we started to create point solutions for customers, then you start to hear the same tune over and over again. And a very prominent part of that tune was our close process is taking too long. It's taking too much time. Why it's taking too much time? Because we have these 200 work papers we need to generate. We have all these processes that we need to complete. And you start to hear that over and over again. And then you start to realize that we can actually focus the solution on, you start to see consistency across companies. We started from toolbox where you could do different things, but then we realized that being able to focus on close acceleration and automation would be something that would help that could be easily replicated and could help many companies. And when I say close automation, I don't mean on how you manage the close, it's actually how you execute the close. You have a few very good close management solutions today, which are like basically platforms that help you run the process. But in order to actually execute the work, then you still need people, and that's where we come in. But when we started to hear the same tune over and over again, and then you go to the other prospect and you ask him, hey, do you have this problem? And they respond positively, then you know where to focus.
I'm curious about team. How do you go about building your team? How did you go about building your team? And what do you look for in those people to indicate that they are the winning horses to join you?
When I started, first of all, I was fortunate enough to work with some engineers that I was working in the past. So I was fortunate enough to work with people that I worked with before, and that's always great. What I was looking for are people who are really experts in data. So because from the get-go, we realized it's not about accounting. When you try to build a company like that, we're trying to solve that problem with technology. So you need data people. Obviously, data people don't know much about accounting or data engineers, but that's like the set of expertise you need to be able to build the foundation of that. On top of that, I think mostly over the last year, you're starting to look for additional people, or sometimes you have to replace, and look for people who are like an AI first people, meaning people who appreciate the advantages that AI brings to the table. You want to be like an AI company, AI first company. You can't just talk about AI without actually implementing it. So you want to have people who can manage agents and be open to that. And obviously, that's something that we started to implement over the last year. I would say initially data people, and then we go to market teams and use people from the industry who sold to the office of the CFO. That's always helped. They know the language, they know the terminology. That's always easy. And that's it.
This episode is sponsored by Mesmo. If you're responsible for reliability, performance, or platform architecture, you already know the problem. Telemetry volume is growing faster than teams can manage it. Mesmo addresses this by moving observability upstream. Instead of storing everything and asking questions later, Mesmo processes telemetry in motion, filtering, transforming, and enriching logs, metrics, and traces before they reach your observability backend. The result is cleaner data, reduced ingestion costs, and faster root cause analysis using the tools you already rely on. Mesmo integrates with platforms like Datadog, Dynatrace, and open source stacks, giving teams more control without adding operational overhead. This is especially useful for platform engineers and SREs supporting complex distributed systems where context and speed matter. To see how active telemetry works in practice, get a demo at mesmo.com/codestory. That's MEZMO.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by BrainGrid. Building with AI coding tools is exciting until the moment things start breaking. You ask for a small change and suddenly 3 other features stop working. AI gets confused, misses edge cases, and loses track of your intent. The problem is not code generation. The problem is planning. That is why BrainGrid exists. BrainGrid acts as your product management agent. It writes clear specification, maps UX flows, asks the clarifying questions you forgot to ask, and breaks big ideas into engineering-grade tasks that AI coding tools can build reliably. It guides Cursor, Claude Code, Replit, Windsurf, and others so they deliver features that work and keep working. Founders use BrainGrid to build real AI-native SaaS products without a technical background. If you want reliable features instead of fragile prototypes, try BrainGrid for free at braingrid.ai. That's braingrid.ai. I'm curious about scalability. I'm curious about how you look at scalability from the beginning. And also, I'm interested if there's been interesting areas where you've had to fight scalability as you've grown.
When I thought about, for the most part, it meant what kind of organization, what size of organization can we serve from a data volume standpoint and processing power. In that respect, I think we were able to build a robust foundation infrastructure that allowed us to handle scale of data. And that was a friction point with a lot of companies where they say, can you handle our scale? Obviously, we do have our area of focus in terms of the ideal customer profile. But within that profile, I think first and foremost, I wanted to make sure we can deal with the data scale. And I'd like to think that the other thing was how to scale the operations, the delivery to the customer and all of that. And I think over the last year, AI gave us a lot of capabilities in how we can deploy things faster and also scale the business from a delivery and customer success standpoint. A lot of the things that we used to do manually and would take a week to configure a use case are now taking, minutes or hours. Depends on the thing. So AI, being an AI first companies and using your own dog food actually help us scale also the operations and delivery.
Okay, as you step out on the balcony and you look across all that you've built thus far with Safebooks, what are you most proud of?
At the end of the day, it's all about the people. I think even today, when we interact with a prospect or a customer, we want to first and foremost gain their trust and confidence. We want to gain their trust and confidence that they're not wasting their time, which is their most, valuable resource, even before money. And we want to gain the confidence that we can deliver, because one of the things people have to realize when you sell to an enterprise is that when you talk to your prospect, eventually what happens, he has to go through an internal process where he sells the same message to his colleagues and peers, which have to sign up for like their time commitment, whether it's like IT, whether like it's his managers, right? He's going to tell them, hey, in 3 months or in 2 months, we're going to be able to do this or that, shorten the close time, increase the accuracy, avoid leakage, so on and so forth. So being able to gain that trust is first and foremost driven by the quality of the team you have that deliver these messages and deliver on the message. To me, that's the biggest thing. It's the team. It's all about people. With some of the things we're doing, especially in the office of the CFO, you can build a company which is like has 2 co-founders or whatever. You have to build a team. You have to build customer success, customer service. You have to be available. Sometimes the functions we serve have extreme time sensitivities around close, audit, due diligence, and stuff like that. You have to be there for them. And it's all about the team.
Let's flip the script a little bit. Tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
One of the examples would have been in, let's say, again, because the AI had a lot of influence around that, but sometimes the delivery times were not the times we communicated or promised, let's say a year ago. And that thing is very important to customers, being able to deliver on your time commitment. Now with AI, because technology is so powerful, we can actually exceed these timelines. But in the past, we used to be aggressive. We thought we could solve the problem one way, and then you have to pivot or linger, or sometimes the customer has constraints. But at the end of the day, you don't need the timeline. So I think that's one thing that we became super sensitive about, because I think the time commitments for how much effort involved when you're going to deliver are, in my humble opinion, are more important to people than even money. It's because that's their main resource. It's like, it's their commitment, it's their sacrifice, it's their balance between their daily job and bringing on a new system.
This episode is sponsored by Unblocked. Your coding agents have access to your code base. Maybe you even connected other tools via MCPs. But access doesn't mean context. Agents can't reason across MCPs. They don't know your architectural decisions, your team's patterns, or why the API was shaped the way it is. So agents look in the wrong place and deliver bad outputs. Then you spend time correcting. More loops, more tokens. Unblocked is the context layer your agents are missing. It synthesizes your PRs, docs, Slack, and tickets into organizational context that agents actually understand. So they make better plans, write higher quality code, use fewer tokens, and require fewer correction loops. If you're running Claude Code, Cursor, or any agentic workflow, Unblocked is worth a look. Learn more at getunblocked.com/codestory. Let's move into the future. I'm curious about what the future holds for Safebooks, for the product, the company, where the industry is going, all the things.
Look, I think entering into the office of the CFO is in its infancy right now. I think we're just getting started. Unlike maybe other areas of the organization like cybersecurity, DevOps, sales, marketing, and so on and so forth, engineering, of course. I think it's in infancy. I do think that a lot of the things that finance people are consumed with today would be totally automated over the next 3 years. On the other hand, I think the real work that needs to be done around governance, processes, process improvement, accounting decisions, things like that, would remain with people. So I think the finance corporate function is going to go through a tremendous transformation and transition into much more automation. I think we're starting late in the process just because, again, engineering came first and sales and marketing, but I think finance turn is coming right now. So I think that's like I see the future. So I think things are gonna be done. I think the system of records are gonna stay, but I think every system of records would require to do way more or being augmented by a platform like Safebooks. The office of the CFO is going to be completely different in 3 years. Think about a public company that has to write their QOK, the proofreading, the validations, it's all going to be totally different and automated in a good way, I think. I think the audit profession is going to change dramatically. I think one of the things we allow is we don't sell to auditors, we sell to companies. However, we do make the audit process much easier because we can enable the company to enable its auditors to see the full audit trail for each transaction for the first time. So auditors can actually interact with the system the same way they interact with cloud or whatever. So I think the audit process, which is a pain point for many companies, many finance people, it's not fun. You have to do your day job and you have to serve the auditor. That's going to be totally different. So I would give it 3 years to restructure the way Office of CFO does business today in the relevant function, right? Obviously, investor relations, it's investor relations, but AP, AR, corporate controller, SEC reporting, and FP&A are going to be totally different.
Okay, Ahikam, let's switch to you. Who influences the way that you work? Name a person or many persons or something you look up to and why.
To be honest, after spending many years in Silicon Valley, all the Silicon Valley heroes influenced me all the way from, and again, in a remote way, of course, reading about them, watching them. I remember a lot of the things the late Steve Jobs used to say on how you build a team, how you build a product are super relevant. To me, the influencers were figures like all the figures we all know from Silicon Valley. And I have to also admit and say that I'm trying not to be shy to learn from many people who are younger than me and have been successful, because I think it's always like every generation brings its own mode and skills, and you have to be able to constantly learn as an entrepreneur. So I'm influenced by, and even if it's not directly relevant, you're definitely inspired by the determination, the consistency, the kind of like the problem-solving approach, the resilience you need to have, the culture, how you build a culture, and so on. For example, building Safebooks, it was obvious to me, we call it like security first. Whatever we do, top of mind for engineering is the security of the data, right? We process very sensitive data. Security always comes first. And you have to have that mindset when you develop, when you engineer. It does stall us a lot of times in releasing new features because we want to think about, okay, if we enable the thing, how can we make sure it's also fully secured? Because a lot of time, changes in a platform can create vulnerabilities. So being a security-first company was like one of the cultures we were trying to install with the team. But I was inspired by, and again, I don't think you need to be inspired by someone who did exactly what you're doing. It's the approach to how you build a team, how you build a culture, how you build a business, lesson learned from, let's say, if you're in the B2B business, what to do, what's not to do, so on. And you also learn from your team. So, because when you hire a diverse team, I think diversification brings a lot of value when put people together, and each comes with its own discipline and learnings and so on, takeaways.
Ahikam, last question. So you're getting on a plane and you're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it. They can't wait to show it off to the world. And can't we show it off to you right there in the plane? What advice do you give that person, having gone down this road a bit with Safebooks and multiple other places?
The cookie cutter advices are around respect your investors, keep them informed, because I see a lot of times where people understand they need to take money from investors, but they don't understand it's like a two-way relationship and you have to keep them engaged and informed. So treat your investors as your partners, treat your team as your partners, try to build a culture and try to hire according to that culture, whatever that culture is. And despite everyone saying the same thing, still every organization has its own culture. Try to hire the team based on the culture, not just necessarily based on skills. And then you always have to move fast, especially in today's world. And I would throw in another advice. I think for the most part, if you're building a business company, think about the business. Don't just build technology and then look for a solution. even if you can sell a service first, solve a pain for a customer, and then try to automate it, that's a much better way than just build something and then look for. So always make sure you see the business in everything you do, because that's what really is really important. Make sure, like when I say see business, make sure the customer has a pain, the customer has a budget, the customer wants to buy from you, and you can solve that problem with whatever you provide, whether it's a service or a product.
I think that's fantastic advice. Well, Ahikam, thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for telling the creation story of Safebooks.
Thank you so much for having me, Noah.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.
Capital One's tech team isn't just talking about multi-agentic AI. They already deployed one. It's called Chat Concierge, and it's simplifying car shopping. Using self-reflection and layered reasoning with live API checks, it doesn't just help buyers find a car they love. It helps schedule a test drive, get pre-approved for financing, and estimate trade-in value. Advanced, intuitive, and deployed. That's how they stack. That's technology at Capital One.